Well, I'm now joined by Hurowitz in Washington. He's the CEO and co-founder of Mighty Earth, an environmental advocacy organization. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday today. I was just looking at your website, which said, what a relief that Lula has won. Of course, the future of the Amazon rainforest couldn't have been more different between those two men. But has it been difficult to watch how it's been almost treated as a political issue rather than an environmental issue?
Well, it's both an environmental and political issue, and that's been the tragedy. I think the reason that Bolsonaro took off on this deforestation spree over the last 4 years was largely political. He was trying to appeal to a base of agribusiness supporters in rural areas and let the forest be damned, let the indigenous people suffer. So I think, the election will have consequences. Lula has set out a really aspirational environmental agenda to boost environmental law enforcement, to create 500,000 square kilometers of new nature reserves and indigenous areas, and also create tax incentives to channel land onto previously deforested land instead of threatening native ecosystems. So that's all good news.
They might be good news, but it is no easy task, is it? How can Lula actually achieve his vision realistically?
Well, there are serious political obstacles. He has really come out in his victory speech to outline an agenda that, point after point, puts protection of the forest at the center of his political agenda. Unfortunately, during the elections, many of the governors and members of Congress who were elected were part of the agribusiness bloc. They have been aligned with international companies like Cargill, Bunge, and JBS that have driven deforestation across the agricultural frontier. He's going to have to get much of that program through Congress. So, sending environmental cops back out into the forest to protect natural resources, to protect indigenous people whose lands have been invaded by illegal loggers and miners requires that enforcement, and that requires money. And those appropriations need to go through the Congress. So that's where a lot of the battle will be fought.
Can you remind our viewers what exactly happened under the current president, Bolsonaro? How much of the Amazon still can be protected going forward?
Well, the great news is that about 75% of the Amazon is still intact. So there's a lot to save. We need to save it. These really are the lungs of the earth. And there's a lot of other ecosystems in Brazil that don't get as much attention, but are as important. The Cerrado ecosystem has been more than 50% destroyed by some of these major agribusinesses. The Pantanal, a swampy region, very carbon rich, very biodiverse, experienced enormous forest fires, even though it is so wet, during much of the Bolsonaro regime, as he encouraged agribusiness to send their bulldozers out and light the lands on fire. So that's what's at stake. There is so much to save. There's a lot of urgency to do it. If we don't stop deforestation, then there's a risk that even the Amazon rainforest, part of it could turn into a savanna, and that would be a disaster for climate change.
Hurowitz, the CEO and co-founder of Mighty Earth, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday today.
Thanks again.